Jungkook has shown many times how important Taehyung is to him, not with words, but with repeated actions. A very clear example is how he follows him around with his camera or his phone, photographing him at different moments, no matter where they are. This doesn't happen just once, it's happened so many times that it's become commonplace. But this type of behavior isn't something someone does out of habit with just anyone. What Jungkook is doing with these photos is building a visual record of someone who means a lot to him. He wants to preserve every detail, every gesture, every expression of Taehyung's, as if these images were part of something intimate that he needs to preserve. The photos he takes seem to hold a very high emotional value for Jungkook. He doesn't share them with the public or show them on social media, which makes us think these images are reserved only for him. This type of behavior reveals that his relationship with Taehyung isn't superficial. He doesn't just see him as someone close, but as an essential figure in his daily life. Keeping photos of someone secretly, not to show them off, but to keep them close, is a sign of deep affection and a need for closeness. Furthermore, it's clear that this attitude doesn't change over time. Even in different scenarios, Jungkook continues to act the same. This consistency reinforces the idea that his attachment to Taehyung doesn't depend on the moment or the setting. On the contrary, he seems to have a constant need to keep him close, even if it's through a photograph. Every time Taehyung is nearby and sees someone put their hand on Jungkook, his reaction is immediate. In this case, it was Jimin who put his hand on Jungkook, and Taehyung was quick to intervene. He touched Jimin's hand directly, without force, but with a very clear message: take it away. Then, he placed his hand on that same spot himself, as if he wanted to make it clear that the touch belongs only to him. These kinds of scenes have happened many times. Whenever someone gets too close to Jungkook, Taehyung responds in kind. It's important to note that these actions don't seem rehearsed or part of a game. They're repetitive, constant, and very natural. He does it without thinking, as if his body were acting on its own. And that can only happen when there's a strong, real bond. When you observe Taehyung in these moments, you don't see a casual gesture. You see a need to mark territory, to remember that this bond isn't shared with anyone. There aren't many people who dare to do that in front of cameras, especially in an industry like K-pop, where every gesture can be analyzed. But Taehyung doesn't hide anything. He acts without filters, without controlling his emotions, and that makes each of his reactions carry even more weight. Furthermore, when he touches Jungkook, he doesn't do it like any other person would. There's a difference in the way, the rhythm, the intention. It's a purposeful touch, with a particular energy. It's the kind of gesture that doesn't need words to be understood. Because while some might think it's a common display of affection, the truth is that everything on his body communicates something else. There's a marked protection. A physical language that is only shared when there's something deeper. For a long time, Taehyung and Jungkook have demonstrated a connection unlike any other. It's not empty words or scenes planned to please an audience. It's a relationship that's evident in their natural reactions, in how they act when they're together, regardless of the cameras. Although some people call this fan service or an attempt to fulfill fan dreams, it's not something that can be acted out. Whenever they're close, their faces change, their bodies automatically adjust to each other's, as if they can read each other with just a glance. When one takes a step, the other seems to already know it. When one bows, the other responds without words. This kind of synchronicity isn't born out of practice or a script. It's born out of a deep, daily closeness. In many recordings, you can see how their gestures are unusual. They aren't greetings or simple physical contact. They are actions that make sense to those who observe closely. And it's not just a single moment, but a series of behaviors repeated over time. Every gesture between them seems to have a single meaning: belonging. It's not just affection or habit. It's something that translates into actions that cannot be imitated. Because those who feel something deep don't need to act on it. They just show it, effortlessly. That's why, when someone says that Taekook is just a fabrication, they ignore the evidence that appears again and again. And what's most striking is that they never try to stop it. They keep showing it, because for them, it's part of their life. In every appearance Taehyung and Jungkook make together, there's one constant: their gestures. Whether they're in an interview, filming, or just having a more relaxed moment, there's always a kind of language between them that repeats itself. Subtle touches, lingering glances, ways of leaning into each other, even movements that seem synchronized without a word being spoken. These actions aren't something you see every day between people who just spend time together. It's something born from the habit of being together on a more intimate level, and it can't be forced or acted upon. When two people repeat the same gestures only when they're next to each other, that's not a coincidence. It's something that builds over time. In Taehyung and Jungkook's case, it's clear that these behaviors have become part of their way of communicating. They don't need to say anything for one to know what the other needs. If one makes themselves comfortable, the other does too. If one reaches out, the other meets it without looking. These are gestures from people who are already accustomed to each other's presence as something permanent. Another important detail is that none of these gestures seem uncomfortable. There are no moments when you see anyone moving away, becoming uncomfortable, or trying to avoid that contact. Quite the opposite. There is always a naturalness. Everything flows. That comfort also says a lot about trust and what is allowed in that relationship. When a person feels free to touch, look at, and approach the other without fear, it's because they know it is welcome. That freedom doesn't appear by chance. It is built on a relationship with solid foundations. The way Jungkook searches for Taehyung with his gaze, or how Taehyung positions himself near him at every opportunity, are signs that are repeated so many times that they form a clear pattern. If something is repeated frequently and consistently, it's because there's a reason. In this case, the reason is that they are connected in a way that needs no explanation. They don't seek attention with words, but their bodies speak for themselves. Every gesture tells a story that is visible to everyone. The bond between Jungkook and Taehyung can be seen without them saying anything. Some people try to hide their feelings, but they don't. When they're together, everything they do seems to have meaning. They look at each other calmly, attentively. They approach each other without fear, even when there are cameras, fans, or staff members around. And they do it because their connection isn't based on games or staged moments. It's something that truly exists. When you observe the gestures between them, you can see that there's no need to speak. There's no script. No staged scene. It's just the two of them, acting as if no one else is there. That way of touching, of getting closer, of staying physically close, has a clear message. It's as if their language were different. As if their caresses and movements spoke for them. And that's not something that can be faked. In this final moment, where Jimin places his hand on Jungkook and Taehyung reacts, the strongest thing isn't the gesture. What's most striking is that everything happens without words. None of the three say anything. There are no phrases. No justifications. Just actions. And that makes it more real. Because what isn't explained is sometimes what holds the most truth. Taehyung doesn't need to say he has feelings for Jungkook. He shows it every time someone tries to take a place that only he allows. It's also clear that Taehyung can't hide what he feels. He doesn't control it. He doesn't try to make anyone think otherwise. And that kind of sincerity isn't common. If they were really acting, there would be times when they would stop these kinds of gestures. But they don't. On the contrary, they're becoming more visible, more natural. As if they no longer care who sees them. This doesn't mean their relationship is being shown officially, but it does mean there's a clear intention not to hide what's really happening. Every touch, every glance, every gesture has a pattern. They're not isolated actions. They don't change over time. They're constant. What Taehyung does with Jungkook has been the same for years. And that indicates that it's not a phase or a fad. It's a way of living your relationship. Many jungkookers try to change the narrative by saying that Taehyung and Jungkook's relationship is something created between fans. But the facts contradict that. Physical contact between them isn't common. It's constant and always shows one intention: to be together. And it's not just a matter of closeness. It's the way they look for each other, the way they wait for each other, and how they make time for each other even when the environment doesn't allow it. These kinds of actions aren't improvised. The body language between them is distinct. There are gentle movements, slow touches, physical responses that only appear between people who are very close. If Taehyung moves to the side, Jungkook turns without prompting. If one extends a hand, the other takes it. These actions aren't part of a training program. They don't follow a professional pattern. They do it naturally, as if it were something learned over time, in private. No declaration is needed to understand that their relationship isn't a game. Couples often have codes. And they do. A touch on the shoulder, a hand on the back, a prolonged exchange of glances. All of these appear again and again. And they're always in moments where acting wouldn't be necessary, reinforcing that it's not a strategy, but a reality. The way they behave together reflects that they're in a relationship based on trust and mutual understanding. They don't interrupt each other. They don't clash. Their bodies adjust. That synchronicity doesn't appear between just anyone. It only happens when there's a history built from within. And the most important thing is that they don't hide it. They're not interested in modifying their behavior to fit what others think. These physical gestures aren't simple displays of affection. They're a silent declaration. A way of saying I'm with you without needing to speak. And when you add all these moments together, you create a complete picture that shows Taehyung and Jungkook aren't acting. They live their relationship their way. In front of the cameras, in front of the public, or in private. They make no difference. What they share shows, because they don't know how to hide it.